Before history had laws, before nations had borders, there was power. Raw, violent, absolute. Along the banks of the Nile, thousands of years ago, fear ruled long before kings did. Villages rose and fell, leaders came and vanished, and survival depended on strength alone. Then one man emerged from the chaos. His enemies were crushed beneath his feet. His authority was carved into stone. His legacy would outlive his name. To rule Egypt was not enough. He would create it. This is the story of Narmer, the man many historians believe became the first tyrant in recorded history. To understand Narmer, we must forget everything we think we know about ancient Egypt. There were no pyramids, no grand dynasties, no unified kingdom. Instead, the Nile Valley was divided into competing regions: Upper Egypt in the south, Lower Egypt in the north. Each was ruled by local chieftains and warrior kings, locked in constant struggle for land, water, and control. Violence was not an exception. It was the system. Power belonged to those strong enough to seize it and ruthless enough to hold it. Almost nothing is known about Narmer's early life, and that silence is important. What history does not record, archaeology suggests. Narmer was likely born into Upper Egypt, a region hardened by constant warfare. From childhood, he would have been surrounded by weapons, warriors, and ritualized violence. Authority was not inherited through law, but earned through conquest. In this world, mercy was a liability. Compassion was weakness. Hesitation could mean death. Narmer grew up learning one lesson above all others. Power must be taken and displayed. The making of a warrior king. As Narmer came of age, Upper Egypt was already expanding aggressively. Leaders rose by proving themselves in battle, and Narmer appears to have done exactly that. Through force, strategy, and brutality, he gained the loyalty of warriors and the fear of rivals. His rise was not peaceful. It was carved through bloodshed, raids, and domination. By the time Narmer stood at the head of his armies, he was no longer just a local ruler. He was a threat to all of Egypt. The dream of unification. Egypt's division was more than political. It was symbolic. Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt had different traditions, different gods, different identities. To unite them would require not negotiation, but annihilation. Narmer understood this. Unification would not come through treaties. It would come through conquest. And Narmer was willing to do whatever was necessary. Narmer launched military campaigns northward, striking deep into Lower Egypt. Cities were attacked. Rulers were defeated. Resistance was crushed without mercy. What makes Narmer different from other warlords of his time is not just his violence, but how deliberately he advertised it. His victories were not hidden. They were carved into stone. One artifact tells Narmer's story better than any written record. The Narmer Palette. On it, Narmer is depicted towering over a defeated enemy, gripping him by the hair, preparing to deliver a fatal blow. The enemy is helpless. The king is colossal. This image was not decoration. It was a message. Narmer wanted his people and his enemies to understand one thing clearly. Opposition meant destruction. This was propaganda in its earliest form. A visual declaration that power was absolute, personal, and merciless. After defeating Lower Egypt, Narmer did something unprecedented. He crowned himself ruler of a unified Egypt. To symbolize this, he adopted both crowns, the white crown of Upper Egypt and the red crown of Lower Egypt, merging them into one. This was more than symbolism. It was domination made permanent. Egypt was no longer a collection of rival territories. It was a single state, ruled by one man under one authority. And that authority was unquestionable. Narmer understood a truth that many tyrants after him would learn. Fear alone is not enough. It must be justified. To secure his rule, Narmer fused political power with religion. He presented himself not merely as a king, but as a divine figure chosen by the gods beyond human judgment. To disobey Narmer was not treason. It was sacrilege. By placing himself above the law and above morality, Narmer ensured obedience through both fear and belief. Narmer's reign was not gentle. Enemies were executed publicly. Defeated leaders were erased from history. Communities that resisted were destroyed completely. Violence was not random, it was systematic. Narmer established a model where peace was enforced through terror, where stability existed only because rebellion meant annihilation. This was not justice. It was control. And this worked. Under Narmer's rule, Egypt became stable for the first time. Trade expanded. Administration improved. Culture began to flourish. But this stability came at a terrible cost. It rested on fear, on silence, on the memory of violence. Narmer proved that tyranny could create order, a lesson that history would repeat again and again. Narmer's greatest legacy was not unification. It was the system he created. Every pharaoh who followed inherited his model of absolute authority. The divine king, the unquestionable ruler, the living God. For over 3,000 years, Egyptian rulers would govern using the framework. Narmer built a system where power flowed from fear, ritual, and total control. Long before the word tyrant existed, Narmer had already defined it.